Good evening, everyone. It is Thursday evening, and we are going to jump into a quick review of some charts and plan our Friday, right? So tomorrow's the last trading day. We have another day, another opportunity before we wrap up the week to make some potential money moves. So let's go ahead and get into the charts today. I didn't get a lot of special requests, but I knew everyone was screaming Palantir. And I caught a few others. So we'll look at those charts and then I'll try to keep this video as short as possible. But at the same time, I just want to make sure we can cover a few so you kind of have an idea of what's happening and what's ahead for tomorrow and maybe the next week. Now, I do have my screener up, so we'll just take a quick check at our heat map. And just to refresh your memory, you can use your heat map to kind of see where money is flowing, right? So in the market, we see a lot of red from today from the S&P, but there's also some green. So we can kind of filter into what closed today green. And so you can see all of these tickers at close today at a percentage of at least 1% or better. Well, a little bit under 1% or better, but they all close green. So we can go in a little bit more and see what was trending. And we have a few tickers here. This one's interesting. I haven't checked on this chart in a minute. Zom had a day. This one had a day. Oxy. Okay. So we had some nice movements in the market. You just have to zoom out, right? When there's a lot of red in the market, just try to find where the money is flowing. Um, we can take a look at TXN. They actually had a pretty big sell-off after earnings. So very interesting. I wasn't paying attention to them and they are trending. So let's switch over to them for a second and see what's happening. Wow, they've been making some moves. And the cool thing is they have dividends as well. So they pay dividends. But like I said, they sold off last earning. In fact, if you look at the daily, they had a gap down $15. And so now they are making a real nice move. They've actually charted, actually prices above the 200. Again, we already are above my 12 EMA, and it looks like buyers started to step in once they were at the low of this candle around 176.76. So I was not watching them, but I kind of like where they are. This is a pretty interesting setup because if they can break out of this supply zone that I have on my chart, and if we measure that to this candle, that's breaking above 206.91 and holding, you can see where the potential is for this stock. So I'm just going to actually set an alert because they were not on my radar. So I'm just going to set myself an alert to check back when price is above 206.91. I'm not really interested unless that happens. And the reason being is I missed the initial move, right? Like the initial move would have been to catch it here whenever buyers were stepping in and starting to push it back up. This candle here was also pretty good, but I would have caught it here at this candle where my arc is happening, where my green on my wolf trend moving average is crossing over. For me, that would have been my initial signal to start a position, and then you just follow it through. And I actually would have looked at this area as resistance, but as you can see, they've reached here and I mean, they're booming through. So I'm just going to keep this as an alert. Actually, we need to set the alert. So that way, if I am not paying attention next time and price m moves to this area, I don't have to be staring at this chart. I'll just get an alert that tells me to check it out. Um, leave myself a little note. And so now this alert means that once price starts to get here, I'll get that signal. I don't have to, it'll actually come to my phone and my laptop. But just looking overall, I'm very impressed at the move here. They have earnings next on April 29th. So a lot of time before their next earnings, but they're making moves out really, really quick from that $15 drop. And their earnings, let's just take a quick look. Yeah, they beat earnings. I have to dig into maybe what was the reason for the sell-off. Again, the market just could have been ready to sell them off. This was also where they actually were was already a supply zone that had been there since November. So once earning came around in January, it just reacted. Like once earnings came and posted, they had to move down. So the market did pull back. I mean, it did sell off for a bit. $15 and look at this recovery. I like this. So yeah, we'll keep this one on the radar. I'm not going to do too much other than set an alert on this one. And just like that, when you use your heat map and kind of take a look at what's happening, I don't a Baxter, I don't really follow Baxter, but we can take a look at the chart and see what it's telling us. So I'm going to go to my wolf chart, and that is BAX. Okay, so maybe they had earnings. Let's see. Yeah, so they had earnings pre-market. And what we're looking for here, if we're looking at the technicals, we're looking to, I would measure it here at the high of this candle, 33.81, a break and hold over 33.81. And you can see from the daily where this can take you just with that break and hold. So I'm just gonna, again, I'll put an alert here and check them out a little bit more later. Price I'm looking for is a hold over 33.81. We're gonna just leave ourselves a note. Set our alert. It doesn't even have to be that long, but anyway, so I like this one. I think if they can break over this 200 weighted moving average, let me add in my support and resistance just to see. Then I think that you can target the 35-ish area and then so forth. There's another area where sellers are positioned in the chart that you can target. But yeah, this actually looks pretty good. This is actually giving us a nice candle. Let's go to the 4 hour, see what it looks like. Yeah, and so they're weak because they basically are in an area where sellers are positioned, and we just need to see if they will break out of that or if they're just gonna yet again pull back from this this price range. So again, I'm gonna set an alert. I'm not looking for anything other than see if they actually do indeed break out. This is a floating candle. If you look at it on the 4 hour, again, it's just weaker because of where we are. We're in the midst of a supply zone. So we'll see what happens with that one. But isn't that cool how just taking a moment to kind of see what the market was doing and where money was flowing, you probably can find yourself some really nice potential setups. I mean, Smuckers had a $4 move today, and they have earnings on the 27th. Nice little W pattern here, right? Pretty much giving us a double bottom. And price looks like it can target this area here around 110. They are already breaking above the previous day candle. So this is another one that looks really good. And I am going to set this one on my watch list. They have earnings on the 27th. And if we look here, we can kind of see how they tend to react around earnings times because I do like to watch that too. So their earnings will post pre-market, it looks like. And let's just see. Yeah, it looks like from where they closed the previous day before earnings at 112, they gapped up all the way to 125. I think this is one to watch. They may get some nice movements ahead of earnings. You can already see it happening. So I'm gonna actually put this one on my list and radar going into tomorrow and next week since earnings is on the 27th. So what we're looking for is momentum ahead of earnings. I'm not looking to do too much until I see how the market truly reacts to them after earnings, but you can see how much of a gap up they can have once their earnings do post. So you have a chance to follow along. See, in this case, in their previous earnings, this one in August, they missed revenue. And when you look at it, so okay, they closed the previous day at 120 and they gapped down as low as 112.70. So anyway, they have nice reactions. They do post pre-market from what I can see. And so we have a few days before their next earnings to kind of pay attention to their movements. SJM, we'll leave that one on the radar for a nice potential pre-earnings run. All right, so now we'll kind of get to some of the tickers that everyone has been talking about. And just one last thing is you can also reverse this, right? Like you can go and see who had red days, who might be at a discount, right? Like who can we find? Walmart pullback, Oracle had a pullback, Costco. I think Costco has earnings. I don't know if it's next month or the month after. So yeah, you can catch all of these pullbacks, go to the chart of your favorites and analyze it. See if you have any potential trade setups that you can take there. To keep things going, let's go ahead and pull up another chart. We're going to start with Palantir. All right. And I don't need this one. All right, so a few things. Palantir took a big dump yesterday, and we had a nice continuation. I mean, the low of this candle today hit 195.80, the high 107.40. And then yesterday, I mean, they sold off about $12, almost $13. Now, when we look at the chart, you have to start to wonder where are they going? We're going to zoom out a bit for a second on Palantir. Obviously, they've reached all-time highs. If you look at the monthly, they have been in a very bullish run for some time now. So we don't need to take too much time on the monthly. Overall trend on the monthly looks good. But when we go here to the weekly, here's what we have. So I do have an anchored VWAP from earnings. Everything else is just my wolf chart system. I'm going to delete some of this stuff here and we'll see where we are with. So with Palantir, we're well above the 12 EMA that I have on my chart. We are testing my wolf trend EMA, right? So right now the green is still above the red and price did close above this EMA. So I'm moving average. So I'm kind of looking to see what'll happen tomorrow with Palantir. What's very interesting and what I find pretty powerful is that typically when a price pulls back to a weekly fair value gap like this, so the big gap up from the week of February 3rd, their earnings week, okay, we had a bit of a continuation and then price started to pull back. And so we pulled back right into this zone and you can see what happened. Like the wick tells us that we pretty much had a reaction in this fair value gap on the weekly. Again, my mind is set to wonder if they're going to hold here or is this going to be a continued sell-off. What we do have below is this 12 EMA positioned right around support of the bottom of this fair value gap, so 85.22. That is probably where I would mark support on the weekly. And I do find that to be a key area, so I do want to be aware of whether or not we pull back this low and if we can hold. So I'm just gonna leave that there. I'm even gonna set an alert just in case it actually plays out and for some reason I'm not watching Palantir. You don't have to have the line on your chart to set an alert. You can also just right click um, and add an alert. Oops, not right click. Sorry, you can do this and then just add the alert. You don't have to have the line. I like to have it bold just for visual. Now, if you go to the daily, here's where I am seeing, some interesting setups. Wait, did I do the weekly right? One second. That looks a little off. Yeah, I think I meant to put 85.22. Not sure why I did that. 85.22 is what I'm watching. Okay. Um, Now we'll go back to the daily. All right, so if we say that they're going to continue to sell off in this weekly fair value gap, which I mean, with the right amount of sell orders, it could potentially happen, then we have to wonder where would they go. Well, if you look here, this support that I've labeled from the weekly measures almost exact to a change of character that's already on my chart. So if we pull back, we could potentially, again, test this area of 85.22. That's a pretty big fall from where they close. So I'm not saying that's going to happen anytime to tomorrow. I don't know what the market will give tomorrow. I'm not saying it'll happen next week. I'm just saying that if they continue to pull back, and it's a strong pullback, I definitely would be looking to see where they land and if 85.22 would hold. And another place they could look to test with such a gap to fill is also here on the trend line eventually. So a very interesting position because now we have to wonder if they will hold because of this weekly fair value gap, or not. And so we'll wait and see what happens on Palantir. We can zoom in a little bit more just to be quick and see where price is currently holding support. So interesting on the 1 hour with the fall, they came right to my 200 weighted moving average. Okay, they came right here and price held support at this 200, which we know can happen. It's also an area where buyers on the 1 hour are positioned and they've been there since these orders have been around since February, the beginning of the month. So they're in the area of support basically, and the 200 caught them, and so they're holding. I have my wolf trend moving average looking like they're also catching price, and so when you see it arc and cross over, that'll be our full signal that Palantir is on the reversal. I don't know where they are after hours, but you can take a look and kind of compare it to what this review is telling you as well. Another thing is we are under the anchored VWAP that I have on my chart from earnings. So that's another signal of the pullback that happened. It's just when they pulled back, they fell right to the 200. So this is why we saw support here. This is also, again, a nice demand zone area. So we'll see what Palantir does. I can't call it right now other than I was hoping they can at least push back and close. I actually think it was 180.70 that I had. What's the low of this candle? You could say, so yeah, previous day low. I wanted them to start testing some of this resistance. So somewhere around 108.70, definitely like above 108 would have been a better sign for me. But yeah, let's just see what Palantir gives. You can trade the day. Tomorrow's Friday, so then remember we could get some take profits. We don't know. Um, let's see. Everyone's been talking about Microsoft, so let's take a look at Microsoft. Mhm. All right, so here Microsoft has quite a bit of support, as you can see on the weekly chart, and they basically fell into all of this green area, which is a lot of demand for where buyers are positioned. So they look pretty good here as far as holding support. I don't see a reason personally where I would feel comfortable in any way shorting this taking puts on this company here. It's just a lot of support. That's just me personally. What I would look for is how do you plan your entry from an area, a pullback like this? So they were as high as 468.35 in the summertime. They've peaked as high recently as you could say what 455.29 in December, and we've pulled back pretty low. So one has to wonder, is this is the right entry, right, for Microsoft? I do like where Microsoft is as far as entry points. I mean, that's just a lot of support. Now, look at this beauty. Now here on the daily, just take a quick zoom in. This is what I mean when I say we get an arc. So I already had an alert set and it has triggered so many times to let me know that this arc was forming and that we were getting a crossover. And then the way to see and set an alert for a crossover is just to right click on my indicator. So yeah, all of yesterday and the day before, I was getting these alerts of Microsoft telling us like, hey, this is happening. And so now we get that signal, right? We get the crossover, the candle is above, and then the candle is also touching the 12, and it looks to be targeting the 200 if we can hold above the 12. Now, I had already set an alert. I don't even remember when I put calls to 418 on my chart, but apparently I did. And I'm just trying to see what I would have been targeting somewhere around here. Gonna take that off. I'll reset my alerts. Yeah, so Microsoft is doing a nice bounce out of this daily demand zone. I like what I see with this arc confirmation, and now we're trying to reclaim the 12. The next test would typically be here. Um, what you have to look at on smaller time frames is just areas of resistance that might not be showing on the daily. And so as you can see here, there's a supply zone that they're actually working through. So you want price to close from here above 418.61, 418.65 to be accurate. And then we can start to target this resistance here at 424.15. So I'm actually going to update my alert because again, I want to just catch that breakout of this supply zone as well. So above 418.65. All right. And we just need to make sure that we do have an alert set so we get a trigger signal once it actually happens. And so even when you go to a different time frame, that note on my chart will always be there to remind me if we start breaking above this 418.65, we have a nice movement to target the 420s. That is the big picture of Microsoft. I know a lot of people have been talking about them, started their positions, and are just wondering where we can go from here. So, yeah, I like the setup. I definitely like the idea that it can test that 424 area, but all confirmations are saying they are starting to make an attempt to break out. So keep an eye on Microsoft. I'm not going to go too deep into the charts because, again, you see now they're in just some area of resistance. In fact, on the 1 hour, even if they broke my signal at 418.65, there's still some choppiness here. So what you would for sure want to do is make sure that we continue to break through and get above that 420, 420.69, and then start to hold candles there. And then let's see where it takes us because even with this gap up, we have nice moves to test around 423.44 and as high as 428.70 before on the 1 hour we see resistance. Doesn't mean they can't break through this entire supply zone. Shouldn't doesn't mean panic sell if you've already started your position. It just means you need to be aware of some choppiness in this area. It's kind of what we see with Apple. So I'm going to leave the Microsoft chart. It is, again, one of those things where I would think you're looking to go longer on as an investment. This is not financial advice, but if I'm assuming you have already started your position, this is your goal is to go and hold Microsoft for some time. So yeah, that's the Microsoft chart. Hope that was helpful. Let's look at Apple. And this is what I mean about Apple, just real quick to show you. So I have a few things happening on Apple. So Apple did give the ARC confirmations when price was somewhere around 230-ish. What happened is with the gap up, all nice movements, broke over to 200, above the 12. Earnings, actually, let me take this off. So on their earnings, you can see what happened. They actually did gap up all the way to this 247.24. But if you remember, Apple pulled back right at opening on the next day from posting their earnings after hours. And so what we have now is Apple in a supply zone. So they're just where sellers are positioned and have been since 8:30. Actually, the more accurate price to look for is 247.33. Why do I have to be so exact? I don't know, but here we are. I just updated that. 247.33. I'm basing it off a candle looking more to the left. Um, Apple is also well above that earning VWAP that I just popped in on my chart. Just a little extra that I like to look at sometimes. So it just broke everything that I would look for as all these confirmations that they are making the move up. However, it just hit a supply zone. So if you look to see, Apple has a better trade setup once they can start holding candles above 247.33. What I do like is that even in this supply zone, they haven't sold off. Like look at the reaction when they gapped up to in the supply zone the first time. It was almost an instant reaction. It was post earnings. And so now we're here again, and you just have to again wonder, are we going to sell off, get that pullback maybe to come back to 240? Or are we going to gap up? We have 249.13 to target and some more higher areas from there. Maybe we'll finally get to the 260 again and break out there. So I do have Apple on watch. I'm just waiting for a signal. I'm not going to rush it. I have an alert set, so I'm not going to stare at the charts either. We'll just see what happens. I hope I'm not moving too fast, but I do want to try to cover a few in a little bit of time. So, Baba, let's get all this off. Baba had earnings, and let's just look at what they did. So one thing you want to know is where has the stock been? And you gotta look at the chart. So the highest point of Baba is this candle right here. So the highest this stock has been is 319.32 in October 2020. So since that point, their all-time high, there has just been a significant sell-off all the way to where they reached their lowest point, which looks to be $58.01. That was in 2022. And so from there, all you've seen is just this small range, right? They haven't necessarily broke out. But now we've come to a point where Baba is actually breaking out. We get a breakout. We're holding candles above some previous month's highs. So, I mean, yeah, it looks good to me. That's just a monthly view, so we'll zoom in a little bit more. I do have an anchored VWAP on this chart, but it's not the one I want. So I'm taking that off. Let's just focus on what we have from the wolf chart. All right, so one, on the weekly, we get the arc that already happened. Entry would have been really this nice candle here. And then we've just had a continuation of moves since then. The target from the weekly looks pretty clean to me that we would be looking to hit, man, 160s. This supply zone has been on the chart since 2021. 2021. So yeah, 166.58 would be an idea target if we're going to get this continuation and Baba is truly on a breakout. Um, we look to the daily and they are reacting to sellers that have been here all the way back again to that same time, I believe, 2022 on the daily. So we haven't even came back and tested this. So now we're here post earnings 2025. And so that's why you see the reaction. And if you're wondering what was holding Baba up from going any further, they're trying to break through this. It doesn't seem like a very wide range for the supply zone. And then if they can just kind of get out of that from the daily, you still kind of see that 260 area. We know that we'll hit on the weekly and then 270, 270 maybe from the daily. Just a lot of room basically is what I'm trying to say for Baba to gap up. Keep them on your radar for some time to see if this really will be a continuation. And then you can plan some nice trade setups. I mean, even if you catch them on a trending day and you just day trade them, to me, it could give a really nice setup. Um, Now what I did post earnings, and so when you're looking at where something will pull back post earnings, so the gap up was at a high of actually it was this high, 144.51. And then once they reach this high, you start to see a pullback. Toss in this. Price already starts to fall under this anchor VWAP from earnings. But then look what my wolf chart does. It gives an arc signal that tells you that price is pulling back. It is pulling back in a fair value gap because we gapped up so much during earnings. But if you look, the pullback was pretty significant, but it was also a perfect area to find support. And if you were looking at this, let's just hide this for a moment. I was also interested in it from here to here. And then you can see where we found resistance. It was already where candles had reacted before the pullback, all the way to around this area of support. And then the bounce up, it actually resisted right where you would think it's supposed to. It needs to break out and above that, or it just will again reject and it could retrace all the way back to this 131 area, maybe even lower. Tomorrow is Friday, so again, I mean, we'll see what happens on Friday with Baba. But even tossing in the fib, that was just a perfect retracement if you just look at it. Um, they just hit resistance. So if you have a blank chart and you had nothing on your chart, you clearly can see these candles right here and just know that, okay, if I just toss in a level here, what do I have? I have my resistance. Price needs to get above it and it needs to hold candles to start to retrace back up. So however you trade, whether you have EMAs or nothing, and you're just trying to find support and resistance, well, it's pretty clear we can measure support around here, and you can measure resistance around here, and we're in that range now. So what happens? Maybe we pull back and test this range again. Maybe we don't, and we actually break out. Maybe we just have an inside day of trading in between this range, which is quite a few dollars. We have 131. You can almost round it off to 132 to 138. Fair range to also find some interesting day trade setups. Um, all right, that is Baba. Nvidia. Nvidia has earnings next week, and I don't want to touch too much on them. but we can just take a peek because I mean, we see where they are, and I think we just kind of have to wait to see what happens post earnings. All of the people that are winning on Nvidia are the people that were not afraid to start building a position when it pulled back this low. They did not get scared of the sell-off. They understood that we've been here before, and when we've been here before, buyers started to pop this baby right back up. We have support. Look at these candles. Even if you didn't have this on the chart, you can visually see where buyers step in, and I mean, they grab Nvidia up. So anyone that wasn't afraid to start building a position and wanted to take that jump, they're the ones that's actually, I guess you can say, winning in a way because they weren't afraid. I know buyers liked it here, right? So if you're just want to find a way to maybe put yourself a demand zone, let's say you don't have the wolf chart like I do, if it's already there for me, you still have to know how to get in the chart and start to plan your trades. Look how perfect this setup is. Nvidia pulled right back to that. So with no indicator, if you start to understand where buyers are jumping in and where sellers are popping out, then you already can tell exactly where a trade can go. All right, so we know that this whole area was pretty bearish. Change that color to red. Change the fill to red. Now we got supply and demand. We also have a VWAP that I anchored from their last earnings, and as you can see, price has broken above it. We are just reacting to an area where we have some resistance because there's a supply zone. When they reached this area, there was a big sell-off. So candles are just, they're a little weak right here. Just remember, Nvidia has earnings February 26th. So they can start to work their way as you've seen here. It's not that they can't get in the supply zone and make some movements. They've already been here before in January, and that was after the initial sell-off from this candle. So again, just keep an eye on Nvidia. Again, it does not mean that because we've reached this supply zone, we can't have price start to close candles in this supply zone. You just probably have to keep in mind it's going to be choppy unless we get a really solid trending day. Like this was a nice gap up. And so, let's see if we can get more gap ups. Now, if you like your EMAs, you toss your EMAs in your chart. You also can find support and resistance from here, and then see where we go. I think if you measure it maybe from the low around this area, maybe 135, you might have yourself a support area. You can look to the left and see, I didn't measure anything, but how close I came to probably being exact to where resistance and support. This was resistance, turn support. We came back, retested, bounce. Came back to it again, bounce, came back, lost it. And it's just been a continued pattern. So I can trust this area. Maybe not the exact number, but 135.68 looks pretty dang close to me. So get used to training your eyes to understand where price is reacting to support and resistance. And you can see, and that's how you measure and plan your trades for the day. You know where support is, you find where resistance is, and you look for where we can have breakouts. So yeah, I'm not going to spend too much time on Nvidia. We are going to look at, hmm, was there any other ones that I missed? I wanted to look at AMD. So let's take a look at AMD, and then that'll be the last one for tonight, that I'll cover. So I was doing some fun little charting on AMD and just trying to get an idea of what's happening. And I just thought that the daily looks like we have some pretty solid support for now on AMD. I don't know what's going to happen. So we'll look at the wolf chart too. But when I was looking at AMD, it looks like buyers previously around 2023 really liked it at this price. And so we have not came back since 2023 to this area. And as soon as we did, you can actually see the reaction. We bounced. We came back to it and we bounced. Um, see if I can zoom in a little bit. And then I wanted to kind of get an idea of what would be some significant resistance, right? There's going to be resistance within all of this, right? But I wanted to know what was the most significant. And that's where I came up with this 121.83. And I can see it was an area to pay attention to here, but price kept trying to break it. And this was all 2023. So price is trying to break here. We break out. And then we have to look from that breakout. We never came back and retested that new support until 2024 of August. Immediately when we did, we get a bounce. Price jumps right back up. And so this last time that we came to it, they gave a little break under, came back, tried to hold, could not hold, and so we fell right back to where you can say it's a demand zone, right? So now we're just looking to see what happens. Obviously, we're going to measure it on smaller time frames to kind of plan what's happening and if you want to trade it. But for right now, I'd say that support held pretty well from the low, maybe of this candle, 106.50, and it's been working its way up since then. So I like the support here on AMD. I do still wonder if we would come back any lower. Because I mean, if you zoom out, there is a chance that we could. If we did, there's buyers right under that I would see. Like, look at this candle. So if we did come, maybe, wow, 80 just sounds crazy for AMD. I don't even want to visualize that pullback, but I'd be here for it. If we lose this demand zone, then yeah, we have some lower areas that we can pull back to. If you're wondering the high of AMD and the potential of this stock, just in March of 2024, they were at 227.30. And since then, they've just done this pull back, lower high, pull back, lower high, pull back on the weekly. Now let's pull up AMD from the wolf chart. So again, you can see this is going to be a solid support area for AMD right here, that 106. So with the wolf chart, there is already support and resistance on the chart. Just gonna get rid of this clutter. So the support and resistance is already here. It matches up to this fair value gap that was created. And as you can see, the pullback, nothing has came back. Price has not come back to test this area until now. And even if we lost some of this from the fair value gap, there's a demand zone right under it around 97.60. So that's probably where if it did pull back, we'll see buyers start to step in and push it back up. So, but look at this. We're getting the crossover signal on AMD. There is some resistance ahead. It's a rocky road back up. And then it's cleaner if it ever broke over this 131.71. So is it an area that you can start to maybe bite on Nvidia? I'm sorry, AMD, maybe because support held, we're getting that confirmation. As long as support is holding, I wouldn't say you should be fearful if you're an investor and trying to get yourself started with positions on AMD. I mean, you go by your own planning on this, use your own system, and then, if you feel like this is a trade worth taking, maybe it's a good place to start buying shares, then go for it. If you're waiting to see if it'll go lower, then you certainly can. But yeah, keep AMD on watch. I just want to make sure that the support holds. Yeah, make sure support holds here. And it also broke another significant support. And my wolf trend moving average is giving a confirmation that we are starting to see the reversal in trend. See, it didn't happen here, even though support was found here. So when we actually do get that confirmation, I like that. So I would say breaking out of 114.53 and breaking above 116, you could say maybe 116.10. There's going to be a supply zone as we get to 117.15 on the 4 hour. So maybe we get some choppiness once we reach there. But if they can continue pushing and break some of this resistance, again, AMD looks good. It's just, it's not something you want to hold in short term, in my opinion. This is something that maybe has to be long term because again, look at all the choppiness that you'd have to go through. It takes some patience. We've been faked out of it of AMD quite a bit. We get the gap up, psych, we pull back, gap up, pull back, but all you can see if you just look at the chart is that it was creating lower highs. Nothing special. You just can't be afraid to start finding your buy-in area. So yeah, this seems to be a cool area. It pulled back, gave a little tease, pulled back, another little tease, pulled back, and you're just constantly wondering, have we found support? Have we found support yet? But you do have to always look to the left to see what's happening. And so when you look to the left, I know my chart looks a little weird zooming in like that. At the point that we would have lost this low, you can already see that we had to come and pull back now because this was a pretty key area of support. So yeah, that's AMD. Plus, we went over a few other charts, including a little bit of a bonus with BAX and TXN to check out for yourself. Um, None of this is financial advice. This is just me looking at charts and sharing my observations with you. Let me know what you think in the comments. Like and subscribe. I'll be happy to do more videos. I'm trying to fit in the schedule that can keep it more consistent. Maybe prepping per day. That's a bit of a demand, but if I can ever make that happen, I will. As much as I can, I'll keep doing these charting videos to kind of help you. But yeah, in the comments, let me know what you think. And again, if you could just please like and subscribe to the channel, that would be helpful. That would also let me know that you are truly interested in the content. If you're looking for something else and maybe you think that I can post a video for you that will help you, let me know. I'll be glad to do that as well. But until next time, I will talk to you guys later. Have a good evening.